Hey everybody, it is Trags, Mike Petralia, back with the latest episode of the Jungle Roar podcast powered by FanDuel Sportsbook, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. We have a newcomer to the program, and I always get so excited about these opportunities to welcome in somebody new from the Bengals beat, as well as somebody who does a terrific job covering all of Cincinnati sports, and that is the one and only Charlie Clifford of WLWT, Channel 5 here in Cincinnati. How you doing, Charlie? And welcome, by the way.
Thanks for the great welcome here, and I appreciate the shout out. I'm still the new guy in town a little bit. And look, it's been so fun this year to jump in for year one. It's been a wild season, obviously, but
yes.
Quick shout out to you. Yeah, quick shout out to you and all the folks who've covered this team for years. I mean, it is a very welcoming media room. It's a great group, tons of great personalities, good people. And that's just not the case everywhere, right? That's life. You go to a new spot. You got to, people don't understand. We're not working with each other, but you're around each other so much. And I was talking to my wife about that the other day. I mean, you're a big piece of that. I really appreciate that. And it just makes it more fun. It really makes a long season, whether you're winning or losing, the team you're covering, that is, it makes it much more enjoyable, and very thankful for that this holiday season. So
you just have not spent enough time around me, Charlie. Just haven't. Trust me. Ask some of the others on the beat, and they know what I'm speaking is the God's honest truth. You just spend a little bit more time around me, and you'll get to know maybe the more cynical side of Trags, though I think a lot of people who know me know there is a most cynical side of me.
That's what we're signing up for, though. That's what you bring. That's a unique piece of Trags, and it's much appreciated. It's hilarious.
Well, Merry Christmas to you. By the way, you're posting on X on Christmas Day. Beautiful, you and your lovely, and your pup. How old's the pup?
He's 15.
Oh.
His name is also Charlie. Okay. Oh. As you know me, with the biggest ego in Cincinnati, I had to find a way to. No, it was Colleen, my wife's dog. It's her sister's dog at college. We've talked on and on about Miami of Ohio. You have some ties there. I went there. I met my wife there. My wife's sister, who was a little older than us, went there, and their house adopted a dog at one point. It's now been passed through the Coors family to my wife. She met me, and there was already a Charlie in the picture when I showed up. So, yeah, he's 15. He still runs the house. He's still crazy. And, it never a dull moment. Never. We don't have kids yet, so he's the center of the attention around here, as you I'm sure understand.
Well, let's get to the game on last Saturday. Let's recap what was, I thought, frankly, a brutal surprise, a shock to the senses for a lot of Bengal fans. They didn't see that coming. That's what I wrote on CLNSCincy.com. Nobody saw this coming. And then I followed that up with maybe we should have. It's been that kind of season for the Bengals, Charlie. They just have not been able, when the opportunity presents, they haven't been able to really jump in and move up the standings of the AFC North. It's the kryptonite of this team for whatever reason. The last 2 years, they were division champs. This year, it seems like they've taken a major step back. Yes, Joe Burrow's out for the season. Yes, that impacts their offense. But what we saw on Saturday, and I think the reason a lot of Bengal fans were upset with it, is the Pittsburgh Steelers offense. Mason Rudolph, a third-string quarterback for all intents and purposes, ran roughshod like a knife through hot butter through them. And that should not have happened against a Bengal defense that was really set up to do well and stop the Steelers and get out of town with a win. Their defense didn't show.
I agree. And I start with the defense too, because I know the easy thing is to point to Browning's interceptions, because he'll admit, as he did post-game right away, they were dumb decisions.
And certainly they were a big part of the game, no question.
But you're right. It was an opportunity to put a team that had no hope down. And you could have done that by coming out and playing a clean first quarter and taking the lead and reversing roles on ultimately what Pittsburgh did to Jake Browning. I'm with you. It was stunning. It was, the big plays that have haunted this defense really going back. I mean, that Tennessee game really stuck out of like, this is a problem. And again, that was against a Titans offense to that point. We were saying pretty much the same thing about
Yes,
that,
great
right?
analogy,
That week.
Charlie. Yes.
So it's the statistics at this point. You have enough of a sample size where you just can't get past the fact of on defense, you're looking at rankings 25 and up pretty much across the board in terms of yardage, both running the ball, passing the ball. And to me, every game, the foundational piece of this season has been when the Bengals have won in the trenches, they've won the game. And when they haven't, I don't think they've stolen anything. I mean, maybe the Minnesota game, technically,
Yeah,
because the Vikings
maybe.
have that exotic scheme and they bring pressure and your quarterback's just going to get hit. So the numbers, I just haven't seen one situation this year where this team has kind of lost in the trenches a little bit and they've managed to win the football game. And Saturday in Pittsburgh was just complete domination on both sides of that. And you're right. Now it makes, as we're looking at the final two here, this is like a 4th and 20 situation now in terms of getting in the playoffs. And gosh, I mean, it's I'm with you. I fully anticipated that being a Bengal win Saturday. And as you said, it's just another chapter in the bizarre season that is 2023 in Cincinnati.
So we'll get to Jake Browning a little bit. And you had some very interesting comments from Joe Mixon after the game. You tweeted them out, and I thought they were very revealing and very honest. We'll get to that in a little bit. But on defense, I think Dax Hill and Jordan Battle, growing pains. That's what we saw on Saturday. Dax Hill way overplayed the first pass of the game to George Pickens. That's why it was an 86-yard touchdown. There was nobody in the middle of the field once the pass was completed. That's a mistake that Dax Hill makes. He's a second-year player, but correct me if I'm wrong, Charlie. Dax is a very bright guy, and you wouldn't expect him to over pursue like that. That was, to me, an instinct play. His instinct should tell him, well, there's no one behind me and there's no one really to the left of me. I've got to make sure I stay in the middle of the field. Instead, he over pursued, and that was that big touchdown. And those plays are going to happen. Believe it or not, those plays are going to happen. The more concerning and alarming drive was the next drive when they went, I believe it was 75 yards, 80 yards in a matter of 10 plays. And that was the play where the Bengals just got manhandled. Those are the moments I think that that are going to stick with me this year. Like you said, the Bengals just haven't done a good enough job in the trenches. Losing DJ Reader, of course, against the Vikings, losing him for the season, that's a big blow. But I just think overall, Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt haven't had the year I think a lot of people expected them to have after both were, re-signed and extended. So you figured, the linebackers would have taken a step forward. They've taken, I think, a step back, and certainly not forward. And, then you take a look at the corners. They're young. I think Cam Taylor-Britt being out Saturday actually impacted the game a lot more than we anticipated.
I do too.
And so, that was my big takeaway. That second drive of the game that made it 14-0 just was very alarming. And after the game, did you talk to anybody in the locker room that could pinpoint what went wrong on those first 2-3 drives of the game?
And everyone agreed it felt like this was the first time all year that the momentum early it got that out of hand. And this thing went that sideways that quick. I think we mentioned first time Zach Taylor's ever walked into a locker room at half down 24-0 as head coach. I mean, this was of epic proportions, going back 5 seasons now. I think that, as you said, the first Browning interception, as costly as that was, you're throwing 3 points off the board in the end zone. Really, that next long drive, and then to come back and to have the mistake, they drop into zone, doesn't see him in the flat, and then the game's essentially over after after that drive. I, the young secondary, the early play with Dax, if that happens in the middle of the game, does it feel as, I mean, it's the first pass of the game. You're facing a third string quarterback. It's George Pickens, the guy in Pittsburgh, who's going to get booed probably throughout that game had he not played his best game of his career. So it's perfect storm scenario here.
You activated two guys in that game. You activated one, the obvious TJ Watt. He just got the crowd going, on defense. And the second guy was George Pickens. Once he got activated and into that game, it felt like there was no stopping him. They had no answers.
These are elite players when Watt on a weekly basis, Pickens when it looks like he engages and decides he wants to take over a game. To your point, though, I agree. Cam Taylor-Britt on that field, healthy, changes that game. That's a situation where if you can have him shadow Pickens and take that out of the equation, I mean, the rest of that Steeler offense is not potent. And Freiermuth, we all talked about him all week. Oh, gosh, they've been getting gashed by tight ends more than any defense in football all season. And happenstance, he didn't do much. I mean, there was
no need to. By the time it got to be 21-0, the Steelers were like, okay, we're going to run the ball. We're going to play power football, chew up clock. And the one time they needed a big play in the second half, right after the Bengals made it 24-8 on the Bengals' explosive 80-yard touchdown to T. Higgins, Mason Rudolph made the best throw of the day. He absolutely laid a dime to Pickens. Hey, football fans, score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets. That's $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there's no better time than now to get in on all the action. And the app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and much more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston and get in on all of the fun action this NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Cheeto, we can talk about Cheeto a little bit here. Cheeto Awuzie is not back, and he's probably lost a step. I think that's fair to say, coming off ACL surgery. And people think, well, he's still a great player. What's a step difference make? Well, you saw what a step difference made on that play down the left sideline.
You're right. And, what was the expectation for each, for everybody with Cheeto season? I think you're right. It just hasn't created any memorable moments, really, right? I mean, I think he's done a nice job in spots, but you're right. He's taken a step back, and it's due to the injury. The young secondary as a whole. I mean, Nick Scott going from your starter to start the season to now he's essentially not on the field, and it is Jordan Battle's show. I think that's good for the long haul, as you said. You need the rep. You have to play.
Yes.
Dak Hill's shown you enough, I think, to have confidence that he is a long-term starter, but you're right.
So I'm going to jump right in here, Charlie.
Yeah.
I think there's consideration within the Bengals organization of moving Dax Hill to a slot corner behind Mike Hilton. When Mike Hilton moves on.
Yeah.
Mike Hilton's still a terrific player and a terrific corner. But at some point, I think the Bengals are going to need more from their free safety than what Dax Hill has given them this year. I think they're going to need more interceptions. They're going to need more productivity. And you just can't have the mistakes that they had on Saturday. Big play after big play, and explosives this year have been through the roof. No pun intended. It's just been, ugly to see. And maybe they give Dax Hill a chance to, make those corrections in the offseason, come back next year, and he's a different player. But I do think that if there is an option out there, either in free agency or in the draft, I think it's more likely free agency, the Bengals might choose to go that route and move Dax Hill around.
Well, it's an interesting thought because, as you mentioned, you're locked in at some key positions now, right? With the Wilson and Pratt situation, Hendrickson on the line. Cam Taylor-Britt is someone you're going to want here for the long haul.
No question.
So you're going to get very, very, you know, you have to choose very wisely here with how you handle. It's not going to be this freewheeling, free spending operation. Um, that's something I haven't thought about to this point. I don't, Mike Hilton, as you said, he's the one player in that secondary who's gotten better. I think as the year's gone on, he is locked in and delivered, whatever 5 straight games to tackle for loss heading into that Pittsburgh game. Um, I don't know. I mean, does he have the quick maneuvering ability that Hilton has? That would be my number one question. If you have, is he that good in short distance situations? It just feels like such a different job description.
But he did that. He did that at Michigan, and that's the only reason where I think he could be versatile enough that if you needed Dax to do that, and he did it a little bit, I believe, in his rookie year at the start of the year when Hilton got dinged up or was off the field for whatever reason. I'm sure it had to be injury. There's no other reason you would take Mike Hilton off the field when he was dinged up a little bit. And when he's off the field and you have Dax playing in the slot, I think he looked pretty good.
Yeah. I mean, it's the bottom line is, as you said, the interceptions, the takeaways, those have come from the linebacker spot, from Cam Taylor-Britt, from Mike Hilton. They have not come from the back end of that defense, the ball hawk plays that you'll see the best of the best make in those positions, right? Oh my gosh, that guy is game changing on the back end. You have to, Zach Taylor told us 3 weeks ago, Harrison Smith, every snap, I'm looking, what is he doing? The impact.
And
now those are elite
Dax Hill is not that player yet.
So to your point, if somehow you can fall into a position where you have someone who has that ceiling, because I think we can all agree, serviceable versus elite, all pro level talent, Dax Hill probably just isn't going to get there. You've seen enough to this point where that's just not his ceiling.
Final point on Saturday's loss, 34-11 in Pittsburgh. The Jake Browning offense was not good. I think we can all agree on that. But what I had the biggest problem with, and a lot of Bengal fans did as well, was 2nd and 1 after getting 1st and 10, I believe at the 14, yes. And then 2nd and 1 at the Pittsburgh 5. 3 chances to get a yard, and they couldn't do it. An incomplete pass to Trenton Irwin or a pass for a loss to Trenton Irwin,
right.
Or no gain, whatever it was. And then Joe Mixon, no gain. And then you had 4th and 1. And then they could have gone quick. And Zach acknowledged this, I think, after the game, as well as the Andre Yosivash play on the sideline. He could have managed that differently. But they call timeout. They go with a pass play, bring in the 3 receivers and the fade to T. Higgins. The ball doesn't get there because Jake Browning's under pressure, and they turn it over on downs. To me, down 21-0, chance to go in with a touchdown before halftime, change the game, and to me summed up the problem with the finesse Bengals offense. I think they're too finesse, and they haven't this year exhibited enough AFC North quality at critical times to succeed. And I think Bengal fans want to see this team make a yard when they have to make a yard.
You're right. And I asked Zach Post, I was curious, that 4th and 1 play was the T route. Was that the number one option? Were you going
yes,
for
you did.
6
That's
there
right.
essentially? Because I'm with you. I mean, you need that yard. You have to give yourself that chance to score. And the best, I was baffled by that play call. I didn't think it was pass interference. I thought it was a good non-call that was underthrown. He was trying to come back.
And really, I know you asked this of T, Charlie, after the game. Not to jump in here, but you asked that of T. And T, when T says, I leave it to the official, I'm not going to get into that. I'm just going to say he made a good play. That's T telling you that
it wasn't PI.
Really wasn't.
No.
DPI.
But you're right. That was a small example of a bigger issue, and the consistency of running the football, and as you said, just beating you without having to do exotic things. Plain and simple, we're going to line up and run our stuff and it's going to beat you. I don't know if this was all derailed because of the first 3 weeks of the season and having to change so many things just to operate an offense with Joe. It looked pretty darn good in San Francisco, and then that following week against Buffalo. There's no question about it. I think, but as this season's gone on, it's a tough one because I think they did such a nice job with Jake, making him comfortable, putting up that amount of points consecutively in must-win games. I mean, after that opening series in Jacksonville, I'm going on a tangent here a bit, but I mean, you get stopped on a 4th down early in that game. Jacksonville goes down and scores. I mean, the fact that we're still sitting here now going in to the second to last game of the season saying this team has a shot, I mean, that's some credit to people who are designing this offense, Zach Taylor and Brian Callahan and Dan Pitcher. I think they deserve a ton of credit for reorchestrating an offense essentially 3 separate times this season since the summer. Okay. But you're right. It's been frustrating, I think, imagine being on that line and passing as much as they've had to. I know that's what you sign up for in Cincinnati. It's a passing offense. Right. But to continue to have to go to the well on that play in particular, I mean, that was just a baffling play call.
And at the wrong time. I mean, I understand that, in a closer game, but you had to have 6 there. That was non-negotiable, and they came away with nothing. All right. How much of the Christmas Day game, Chiefs and Raiders, did you watch?
Watched it all. What did you think?
So, I think the Chiefs are a hot mess. And when I watch a team like the Chiefs play a game like they did on Monday, on Christmas Day, in Kansas City at home, I'm like, there is a danger there because eventually you figure Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are going to figure it out. They did not. I think it was Boomer Esiason on the CBS broadcast in studio that made the point, or no, excuse me. It was Phil Simms. It was Phil Simms who made this point. I thought it was brilliant. Usually with an Andy Reid offense, you can tell that one play is being called to lead to another play, and they're going somewhere with what they're doing.
Yeah.
And on Monday against the Raiders, a good defense, good defense that Antonio Pierce, their interim head coach, has done a phenomenal job really getting that defense. He's obviously a defensive player, getting that defense rallied and playing old-time Raider football and physical.
Yep.
It looked like Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes were just throwing stuff against the wall, hoping it would stick, and there was no cohesiveness to that Kansas City offense. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, are they really going to look that bad against the Bengals back-to-back weeks? That's what I keep thinking. And they didn't look great against the Patriots when they played a pretty mediocre first half and pulled away for a win. Of course, they lost weeks prior, some really tough losses. And obviously they lost at home to the Buffalo Bills, very controversial. The Chiefs, to me, are a dangerous team on New Year's Eve for the Bengals, simply because suddenly they're in a desperate situation because they want to get things lined up for the playoffs.
No question. Ton to play for in Kansas City. Ton of the same, I'm sure, anger that Pittsburgh had this past week. So
Correct.
I think to say, oh, this is the right time to catch the Chiefs, there's no right time. If Pat Mahomes is under center, there is never a right time to catch him. I think the defense, as much as we want to spotlight the offensive struggles, that Kansas City defense looks like it's a Super Bowl caliber defense still. I would put them up there with Baltimore reminding everyone last night that they should be the favorite. I thought that for most of the season. I think this is Baltimore's year. I really do, even with the Andrews injury. But you're right. I don't know if it's something behind the scenes that is causing Pat Mahomes and Kelsey. I mean, just
they look distracted. I mean, I know this is so cliche, and with everything going on with Taylor Swift, they just look like a distracted team, and they've looked that way for a better part of the year.
I agree, and it's boiling over now in games that still mean things, where it's clearly at the offense's fault that these losses are happening. I mean, 4 losses at home this year. That would be incomprehensible considering their success lately. Do they get consistent pressure on Patrick Mahomes? I think that's the number one question, because for most of yesterday's game, he's scrambling and nobody was open. And he's either how many plays did he take to the sideline yesterday? One ended up being a goofy pick that you never see Mahomes make, but a lot of them were passes out of bounds. He's scrambling for 4, 5, 6, 7 yards. I mean, that was a heck of an effort from Antonio Pierce in that unit. It starts with, can you get pressure on him? And if you can, you have a chance. And if you don't, then I think this is just unfortunately going to be the end of the road for the 2023 Bengals.
So Cam Taylor-Britt, speaking of CTB, he is expected to be back this week. I'd be shocked if he weren't back, because he's been doing everything in terms of rehab, working out on the field, doing everything to get ready. He's been in good spirits. I mean, he's acting like a guy that should probably be back on Sunday in Kansas City. And if that's the case, that really gives the Bengals a big boost in that game, Charlie.
It does. This is at the perfect time, and I'm with you. He looks ready to go. I would be shocked if that wasn't the case. Offensively, how do you approach getting Browning in a nice rhythm early? I mean, it was crazy to look down and, oh my gosh, he still threw for 335 in Pittsburgh. So I think that was the one silver lining of they moved the ball. It was not a parade of 3 and outs. He still, when he had time, it looked like the plan was there. I don't know. How do you attack that Chief defense if you're sitting down today and really trying to
run the ball or find ways to get short yardage, make short yardage in tight spaces, because the Chiefs are playing terrific defense, but you've got to find a way. And I believe Zach and Brian Callahan and Dan Picture are very good at scheming and coming up with ways to find the Bengals some, secret yards, if you will, hidden yards in the offense. I don't have a worry about that. My concern is more with the Bengals defense. And you mentioned, the Raiders had the ability to really plaster the receivers, as they say, and make sure nobody is running free downfield. The Bengals secondary has not been good at that this year. It was really exposed against the Texans. And they've, had breakdowns, obviously, against the Steelers. We just saw that. But the Bengals defense just has to play better. I think they've got a shot to win if they're close and in the game in the first half. They can't, obviously have a repeat of what happened in Pittsburgh. Before I let you go, Charlie, there was a story, a tweet that you did about 2 months ago that really turned viral. And you know the one I'm talking about on Trenton Irwin?
Yes.
And I'm going to read from your tweet back on October 12th. Bengals wide receiver Trenton Irwin secretly was a driving instructor this offseason, not for money, just to make sure a friend could get where she wanted to in life. On Sunday, back then, Irwin turned in one of the best games of his year. That was right before the Arizona game, by the way.
Yeah.
And it was big time, but that didn't top what he did for a friend. Tell us what inspired that story and what it was all about.
Yeah, it was, Trenton Irwin to a T. I think Zach's told us, in terms of people in the building, I think Jake Browning and Irwin are the most, spend the most time at Paycor. He's singled them out. If you've been around Trent Irwin, you can tell just a special person. He cares. He's done quietly on a weekly basis volunteer work at an organization called Saturday Hoops in downtown Cincinnati. It's a youth organization that is as simple as it sounds. Come together, let's play some hoops on Saturday morning, let's eat, let's have some laughs, let's spend some quality time with some people in the community who are doing good things, who are adults, and Trenton's been one of those guys. He's a weekly guy. He's there during the season. He's there certainly during the off season, and through that, he met a participant, now turned young adult college student at Northern Kentucky, who is also very inspirational, and she wants to stay in Cincinnati and help kids who were once like her, have a shot at a better life, who maybe grew up under some really tough circumstances. Well, the long story short is she wants to get back to Cincinnati from campus on a regular basis. She doesn't have anyone to even, take her on to get on the road with a car, get some hours. She can't get to first base in a situation that I know for many of us was, you didn't have to think about. Your parents would take you out and put you behind the wheel, and you got those hours. Well, Trenton heard about this and said, hey, after OTAs throughout this spring, I'm going to pick you up. Our other friend who's involved in this organization, organizer, is going to come with too. And we're going to rock up these 50 hours, as he joked, in my Honda Accord. We're going to cruise around. Don't worry, bang into walls, hit the curb, hit some bumpers. I don't care. And it became this, really special summer for both of them. And to think about the hours, this isn't someone who just, okay, I'll hang out for an hour and a half, and here, let's take an Instagram together, and I'm moving on. I mean, this is a true friendship. And I got tipped off by the story from a mutual friend of theirs, and T.I., as the guys know him in the locker room, was all in on it. So we sat down with him, and then we met up with his good friend and kind of reenacted a few things that they did driving wise. And I think it's just a reminder, as we said at the end of the story, the best gift you can give someone in life is your time. There's no check, the checks you write, the pictures you take. It's truly, hey, I care. I'm going to help you. And I'm going to do it with my time. And it came together. I'm so happy for him because he's worked his tail off to make a team. I mean, the guy's been cut 4 years in a row coming out of camp right before this year. And I think really I saw it this summer and trying to learn these guys. Wow, this isn't some ho-hum, filler wideout. He made some spectacular plays this training camp.
Yep.
And I think Troy Walters having the Stanford connection, knowing, as they always say, he can play any position on the field. Trent Irwin, that's how he's made his mark here. In a pinch, he can fill in for anybody. And couldn't be more happy for him. Hope he has a nice close to the season here and he sticks around because he's a good guy.
Be sure to catch that story that Charlie Clifford did for WLWT Channel 5 in Cincinnati on his X page. And that's CHAR_CLIFF. Char Cliff with an underscore in between, correct?
That's it, Trags. Appreciate you, man.
Anytime. And I appreciate the work you've done on the beat. Believe me, I speak for the rest of the beat writers on the beat. Charlie, you've done a terrific job, been an awesome addition in meetings with Zach and meeting with the coordinators, which we will do again this week. You really bring a lot of intellect and insight with your questions, so we appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on, and see you in KC.
All right, that sounds like a deal. He is Charlie Clifford. My name is Mike Petralia, Trags. Thanks for downloading this episode of the Jungle Roar podcast, powered as always by FanDuel Sportsbook, the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Until next week, keep that jungle roaring.
FanDuel is the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.